What can you say about a franchise that consistently has provided solid gameplay, enjoyable humor, and amusing characters? Classic is the term that comes to mind, which easily sums up the Ratchet Clank series. Harking back to classic platforming titles, the game mechanics of Insomniac's franchise have consistently been entertaining for PS2 owners, raising the bar for adventure titles. That is until 2004, the same year that Portugal had the European Soccer Championship, got Yemista both in the beginning and the end of it, had Slide 2 and more games showing up on the PlayStation 2 as well, and also it would be the year that we would receive the fourth installment of this dynamic duo, which until in our present days, the franchise practically obliterates the bar itself. Which basically is the only franchise that is still alive. Just because you put them on Rift Apart, that doesn't mean it's a revival, okay? So, lace up your gravity boots and grab a sharp cannon, because we're going to blow away some aliens with Ratchet Clank 3. Up your arsenal. The team at Insomniac Games has proven year after year that they're the masters of making sequels ever better than their predecessors were. For example, 2000's 3 Going Commander, after all, made quite a significant progression when compared to the original game. However, Insomniac has gone way beyond the notion of just adding a couple of upgrades or weapons before calling it a day, and have implemented back in the day something that no one would have thought about it. An all-new, fully realized multiplayer feature as well. This new gameplay option isn't just a half-assed tacked-on bonus mode either. It's an extensive, entirely entertaining supplement to single-player game that, for all intents and purposes, it was the best PS2 online game in 2004. Essentially, think of it as a Lombax version of Unreal Championship back in the day, which you had a lot of modes with, like Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag. You can think of any modes necessarily. And basically you would have 8 players in the same room around 10 maps. Think of, for example, that you had a lot, and I do mean a lot, of Lombaxes fighting against each other. Just keep that in mind.
Awesome! This is gonna be sick!
But don't think that it was only the online mode that makes Ratchet Clank so great, because longtime fans of the series can already tell you that the franchise was built on a superb single-player experience to begin with, and that reality is no different in Ratchet Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal. And this third installment has managed to fine-tune the gameplay mechanics to near perfection. Of course, it needs to be understood that on the whole, Ratchet Clank has almost completely moved away from its status as a platformer. Now it's almost entirely an action adventure with a few platforming elements, and a heavier emphasis on shooting. That doesn't make the game any less enjoyable though, because if anything else, Up Your Arsenal is a much better game than it has ever been before. Ratchet's reaction time and virtual weight when jumping, for example, feels terrific. No more of that slippy slidey feeling that we had in the older games, and the faster paced nature of the enemies makes it for a much more exciting selection of missions.
Captain Woo!
As for the missions themselves, they're more varied than ever and really take advantage of the game's deep universe of characters. Clank, for example, plays a much more prominent role here than he did before. His exciting controller robots and giant mech scenarios are found with more frequency, in addition to a few other things that are best left for you to discover on your own. And while it's true that the game is still somewhat linear in design of its stages, and this is basically a staple of the series, you can still go back and visit them as often as you like, usually finding all new goodies that you probably didn't know were there previously, like a golden bolt or maybe some other device that you needed to go to a certain planet.
Do not mess with Agent Clank.
Another nice touch to the mission structure is the addition of several new minigames. Perhaps the most talked about of which is the new side-scrolling Captain Quark platform challenges. Similar to the old Apogee PC Duke Nukem titles, These addicting little side quests use some old school sound effects and a 2D perspective to retell Quark's most famous adventures prior to his meeting with Ratchet and Clank against the villain of this new third installment, Dr. Nefarious.
You can look forward to being disintegrated! That's all for now.
The Captain Quark stages are only playable when you collect Captain Quark vid comics though, so be on the lookout for them as early as possible. The search is definitely worth it, and you can expect to find a few ship-related quests and some turret-busting missions, in addition to some of the returning underwater swimming assignments and all-new skydiving sequences. The mission variety here is really great. The primary focus of the game though is Ratchet's ability to shoot things savagely with his weapons. In all, there are a host of different guns to choose from, including a few from both the original game and sequel going commando, with items like the Plasma Whip and the Infector, an item that brain rushes your enemies into attacking each other, sticking out as some of my favorite new selections. There's even a new Rift Inducer that creates black holes and sucks enemies inside for devastating effects. What helps separate up your arsenal from the rest of the action games with various weaponry though is the fact that there's a definite strategy for each of these different attacks. Certain guns will be damn near ineffective against specific opponents, for example, so you have better be ready to use your brain as well as your trigger finger. Helping you with this regard is a much more streamlined weapon upgrade feature. In Up Your Arsenal, most of the Ratchet's weapons now gain experience to up to 5 different versions of the gun, and the effects of each of them are quite extensive, like blast radius, the number of rounds, firepower, and ammo limit all increase as you go along, and just like the going commando, so does the visual presentation to represent them. It serves as just another strategic element of the game's vast playability. But the tactical aspects of your arsenal don't end with weapon selection. They're also a big part of your enemy's behavior as well. In an interesting twist that helps add a lot of the progressive difficulty of the game, your Terranoid enemies arrive in a host of different varieties, with each of the more advanced versions of the creatures sporting more eyes than the last, or having their skin in a different color. But that's your visual clue, as seeing a monster with more eyes is a conspicuous reminder that it may take more than just a gunshot to eliminate an impending threat. So while a one-eyed creepy may simply run at you while making noises before you blow him into oblivion, a 5-eyed monster may search for cover when you shoot at it, or perhaps attack cohesively in groups. This kind of obvious but effective approach to AI definitely merits mentioning, and it was a great addition to the series as well. The smooth as butter gameplay and gun-oriented strategy are what made even better by some of the PlayStation 2 best graphical technology in that time. Able to be seen in both widescreen and progressive scan, the character models and environments look terrific regardless of what kind of television mode you run them in. It's easily one of the best looking PS2 titles I've seen, and boasts even more on-screen objects and enemies than Going Commando did. This impressive feat is further enhanced by a collection of gorgeous looking particle effects and some truly satisfying explosions. The animations are just as top notch and provide a great deal of personality for each character in how they move and how their faces react to the on-screen action. I do have to point out though that Naughty Dog's Jax series still has the advantage over Ratchet when it comes to characterization and personality. Don't get me wrong, I love the characters and universe that Insomniac had created with Clank's line of actors, but the artistic style and level of comedy feels a little forced and generic in comparison. When taken on its own merits, however, the game offers more than enough to keep you interested. Part of the reason that Ratchet's characters overcome its less inspired character design is thanks to stellar voice acting and superior soundtrack. Among top tier games like San Andreas, Jack 3, and Legacy of Kain in terms of its audios, Up Your Arsenal managed to capture the personalities of its characters fantastically. Captain Quark in particular is pretty hysterical with the Bill Clinton-esque galactic president, one of the more endearing characters. Clank's dry sidekick humor is in great contrast to Jack's own sidekick Dexter, while Ratchet's "Why Me?" delivers his own spot. And we can't forget about Dr. Nefarious, who makes his first appearance in this game as a fan of soap opera, or drama if you want to put it that way.
Janice, you'll always be the love of my life.
Lawrence, do you mind? We gotta finish up the review. Thank you. I really enjoyed the game's orchestral soundtrack though. While not quite as good as Going Commando's superb score, it offers a solid selection of movie-inspired themes that are both dramatic and action-packed, providing some of the best original music this side of Final Fantasy. The audio effects are just as impressive, with a wide range of different sounds, effectively representing everything from the grumble of stupid level 1 monsters to the baritone boom of your 30-strong weapon set. It's definitely good stuff, and it's made even better by some slick encoding that really brings everything together. If you have a quality surround sound system, make sure you crank that sucker all the way up. What impresses me most about Ratchet Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal is the fact that the single player adventure didn't suffer in the least. It's just as entertaining, interesting, and fun as the online segment. What's more is that Ratchet 3 can be picked up and played by just about anyone and be enjoyed equally. Its only real detriment is the fact that it's a bit on the easy side. Maybe easier than Going Commando, but that's really about it. The rest is all gravy and an unabashed most zone for every PS2 gamer with a pulse. Or, by any chance, if you don't want to get all the PS2 games, and if you're more of a retro collector, you can actually get the PS3 HD collection of the Ratchet trilogy, which it has all 3 games and what I use for most of the videos. Although I gotta say that maybe visually the HDs, there are a little bit of a glitch here and there, but the experience itself is not that bad. What will happen to Ratchet & Clank? I just gotta say it, I'm not prepared to go into an arena. Because next up, we're gonna be gladiators. So suit up, get ready for a brawl of your time.